Is C60 safe? Today we're going to discuss some myths and common misperceptions about C60.
Unfortunately, there's a lot of false information out there giving C60 a bad rap.
Yeah, it's no wonder why people are asking if it's safe. We're going to take each misconception one by one, and we are going to crush them.
Yes, let's do this.
Let's do it. Misconception number one, C60 may be potentially harmful?
False. All of the studies which show negative effects of C60 have been on particles of C60. That is bunches, basically crystal shards of C60 consisting of hundreds or thousands of molecules. And a nanoparticle crystal shard it doesn't matter whether it's C60, clay, silicate, or aluminum silicates, it has toxic effects because of the nature of a crystal surface. They are completely different from a singly dissolved molecule. For instance, like silicon dioxide, silica, is necessary for good health, but it's also the main constituent of glass. Now, if I was to take some glass and grind it up into little nanoparticle shards and give it to some test animal, you would have some really negative effects.
You'd be bleeding from the inside out.
Yes,
right?
it's the form that something is. It's the form which is causing this toxicity, not the material itself. It's the same with titanium dioxide or aluminum silicates or silicon dioxide or clay. Nanoparticles can have negative effects, and that's because they're nanoparticles, not because of the chemical nature of their individually dissolved molecules.
C60 has a very unique shape. It's a spherical shape. Can you tell us about what the difference is between a single molecule and then the nanoparticles?
Yeah, a single molecule of C60 in between the 5 hexes here, all the chemical activity goes on right here. On a crystal surface, the chemical activity goes on the whole crystal surface. So it's sort of like a catalytic surface. So these are very localized and specific. A crystal has basically electrons move around and it acts completely differently. When you have a singly dissolved molecule C60, it's very unique. It has a slight positive 2 charge, but most molecules achieve a positive charge by giving up an electron. C60 is different. It actually pulls a positively charged hydrogen ion out of the environment and stores it on the inside. And then when a negatively charged oxidative radical sticks to the C60, it releases that positively charged ion, it neutralizes it back to water or oxygen or some other neutral substance, and it resets itself. So it can keep doing this thousands of times before it exits the body. And because C60 makes really no permanent chemical bonds in the body, it washes out on an average of 10 days.
Right. So the molecule itself, the shape itself of the molecule is part of why it's such a miracle molecule and why it has all these health benefits.
Yeah, and if you take thousands or hundreds of these molecules together, then it doesn't act the same way. Completely different chemicals. It's like comparing apples to bricks. 2 totally different chemical reactions you're going to get. There's one other type of singly dissolved C60 molecule, which is also shown to have positive health benefits, and that's polyhydroxylated C60. And basically what they do is they take individual molecules of C60 and they attach hydroxyl radicals to them, usually about 24 to 36, and this makes it water soluble, and that allows it to be injected in a saline solution into test animals. This is an extremely expensive form of C60, and it's really only used in injections. And basically the C60 is injected into the body. The C60 molecule inside the body with a different pH strips off all the hydroxyl radicals, neutralizing them back to water. And once it's done that, then it becomes biologically active and can do its job.
So they just use that for research purposes,
yeah.
Right?
And you have to be aware, there's a lot of people selling what is they call water dissolved C60. No, they're not using that type of C60. What they're doing is they have basically suspensions of tiny particles of C60. They're so small, they say suspended in the water. And in multiple scientific studies, they've found that particles of C60, ingested particles of C60, have no health benefits whatsoever. In fact, they may have some negative ones.
They just go right through you.
Yeah,
right?
it's because it's a very expensive waste of your C60.
Misconception number 2, C60 causes DNA mutations?
No. Once again, that's one of these particle studies. Here's one of them. In vitro in vivo genotoxicity induced by fullerene. C60 and kaolin. Kaolin's clay. Right there, if you go to this study, and you look right there, it says nanoparticles of 243 nanometers on average, 856 nanometers on average, 357 nanometers. These are all particle crystal shards of C60. And yes, crystal shards of C60, just like crystal glass shards, would have the same effect. Here's another one. Oxidated damaged DNA in rats exposed to oral gavage to C60 fullerenes and single-wall nanotubes. Well, we know single-wall nanotubes are pretty toxic, but once again here, if you go down here, they had nanoparticles. Nanoparticles of C60, a couple hundred nanometers across. And yes, just like any nanoparticle, whether it's made of C60, titanium dioxide, clay, aluminum silicates, silica, it has the same thing. And here's a third one. Another one that you'll see, biological effects of C60 fullerenes revealed as bacterial biosensors toxic or rather than antioxidant. Well, once again, if we look here, there's the nanoparticle size. Right there, you can see a size on average about 9 nanometers in size.
And it says right there, fraction of the total amount of particles.
Yeah, that's right.
That's
so every
a red
one,
flag.
yes, every one of these studies that they use have been with nanoparticles.
Misconception number 3, but there are no clinical trials or human studies.
Not true. We actually perhaps were the first people that did a human study of C60 and improvement in vision. And it was conducted by a PhD research scientist. We studied C60's effect on vision, and of our 12 people in the study, all 12 of them had significant increase in vision. I also know of several other studies out there, ones on helping veterans deal with post-traumatic stress syndrome, and a couple more. And some of them are nearly completed or are completed. None of them have yet been published in a peer-reviewed journal because there's a little resistance to that. You got to realize most medical peer-reviewed journals are financed by the pharmaceutical industry. And so since C60 cannot be patented, pharmaceutical companies really can't make money off of it. So there's a certain hostility towards carbon 60 at the moment.
And they've also done studies on human cells. And C60 works at the cellular level, right? So can you talk about how?
Oh yeah, well that's yes. They've done human studies on human cells. They did one, for instance, for sunburn. And they had 2 sets of human cells, human skin cells.
They also use human mast cells for the allergy
Yes,
studies.
and they did that one too. And basically they subjected the human cells. One set got C60, the other didn't. They hit them with UV light. The ones that had C60 didn't get really any damage. The ones that didn't have C60 were significantly damaged by the UV light. So there has been studies. And you got to remember, C60 acts at the cellular level within the cell to make the cell work different. So the difference between an animal cell and a human cell, like the difference between a rat cell and a human cell, is very little on the cellular level. So it's because of that, many of the animal studies are really relevant. One of the first animal studies that really brought this about is when they first tested C60, it basically increased the lifespan 90% for rats, and they did another where it doubled the lifespan of mice. And so they kept them through their whole lifespan on C60, and virtually all the control mice or rats died. All the other test rats that weren't given C60 died. They were usually given the olive oil. And then the C60 rats outlived them all. And in fact, some of the studies ended, or the rats had terrible accidents, so the studies ended early so that they could be published. So that we don't really know. It could have even more than doubled.
They could have lived longer. Yeah.
Yes, they could have lived longer.
Well, yeah, and that's interesting because that study, they weren't doing the study to find out if it would double the lifespan of rats. They were doing the study to find out if there was any toxicity level of C60. And not only was there no toxicity level, but there was actually all these amazing health benefits. Misconception number 1, may be potentially harmful?
Not if the C60s dissolve as a single molecule in oil.
Crushed. Misconception number 2, causes DNA mutations?
Not if the C60 is dissolved as a single molecule in oil.
Crushed. Misconception number 3, no clinical trials?
Not true. We did one, and we know of several others.
Crushed. We've enjoyed crushing these misconceptions today, but if you find any other misconceptions or articles that are touting supposed negative effects of C60, please send them our way. Write us at questions@c60purplepower.com. We'd be happy to answer your questions on the next show.
Yes, absolutely. And we've probably seen those articles, and I can give you exact reasons why they are not relevant to single molecules of C60 dissolved in oil.
Now, if you're interested in seeing the research that has been done on the actual C60 molecule that we use in our products, you can visit c60purplepower.com/science. And all of those studies are not involving particles. They're involving single molecules either dissolved in an oil or also added to the
Polyhydroxynated.
Yeah, thanks. That thing, and injected. So one of those two methods are fine, but anything with particles, not fine. So we hope that explains it today. If you have any questions, visit c60purplepower.com or write us at questions@c60purplepower.com.